So sheets are over there with pens. You can go and write your questions out and bring them up here
Actually, yeah.
for Gordon to.
Well, here would be. There, no.
And we have
Nope.
present at this moment.
And I believe you on that. The special favor to
We
you.
have Robert Pirro, Republican.
Yeah.
We have Jason Catala, Democrat. Susan Tierney, Republican. Regina Mosley, Democrat. Brian Dowdy. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Democrat. Elaine Maynard Adams. Democrat. Jeffrey Hart. Democrat. And Charmaine Greger. And Green Party. And we also have in attendance the mayor of the city of New London. Welcome, Mayor, and Anthony Nolan, State Rep. Welcome, both of you. And I want to thank the people that brought this together. Dan helped us with the sound system. I'd like to give an applause to you. Thank you for the last day. I really appreciate that. For Jay, Sarah, Kat, Cheryl, Karen for helping out as well. I really appreciate it. Also to Bianca and Rashawn and my little guy over there, Jaden, for helping out as well. So please, the girls, I'm sorry. What are your names?
Lindsay, Sophia, Ella.
And these are the helpers, these are the timers, so we are keeping track of the time. We're very serious about this. So we have these beautiful young ladies to help us out with that. Without further ado, Gordon and his, Christine, I'm so sorry, I'm just not.
You're doing great.
Thank you. Are graciously helping us out moderating this event as well. And they'll be helping out throughout all three events. I want to remind everybody, the next meeting is a city council meeting, which is on Friday, October 25th. The mayoral debate is on Tuesday, October 29th. Same time for all events, same place. Okay? And without further ado, go ahead, Gordon. Christine?
Actually, we wanted to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, okay, this is right there.
Okay. You're here. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all so much for coming. We've been through a few of these, and they're generally pretty lively, so hopefully this will follow suit. Quickly go over the rules. We are going to, because there's a couple people missing, we're going to allow for a little bit more time, and we'll have an opening of 90 seconds where we expect you just to introduce yourself and briefly, just if you would just tell us, Christine's going to tell us.
If you could give your name, your qualifications, why you're running, and if you are an incumbent, if you could let everyone know how long you've been serving on the Board of Education. And why don't we just start down that end to begin with Mr. Pirro, if that's okay with you?
Well, good evening.
90 seconds.
Well, good evening. Thank you for the Neighborhood Alliance for hosting this, Gordon and Christine for moderating. My name is Rob Pirro. I grew up on Dell Avenue some 50 years ago to Mary and Tony Pirro, the youngest of six. Had a paper route growing up. I worked from the very beginning. Spent more time than I know at Ocean Beach Park as a kid. I went on to New London Public Schools, then on to St. Bernard's. Throughout my course of being a student, I struggled. I had dyslexia. I had issues in school that I didn't always understand until I had a child, thank you, Dan, who had a learning disability as well. So one of my focuses in my campaign is to look at 504 plans and to try and address how we're looking at that. My other issue for running is some of the disturbing things that have happened in our school district. And I think we've lacked the leadership to address some of those issues. I'm currently an investigator with the state of Connecticut. I served previously on the city council for 16 years, served a term as your mayor. I'm also one of the registrar of voters responsible for over a $120,000 budget that we oversee. So some of the things I want to look at in the school system are Harbor School and whether or not that school building is viable for our students moving forward. I want to understand why we haven't signed a contract with paraprofessionals for over the last 2 years. They voted for a contract. There still is no contract in place. My time. Thank you.
Yeah, and as we do this, it's important that we keep time, and we're going to allow everybody to have an additional 15 seconds because we didn't really set the standard early, so I apologize. These guys will be flashing a 30-second sign, a 10-second sign, and then quiet llama, which means you're done.
Oh,
Quiet llama.
I thought that was a peace sign.
No.
In our day it was.
And then if that doesn't work, I'll grab a mic and I'll yell. So try to keep it to the time. It's really important because there's a lot going on, and I don't know that everybody, I'm sure everybody wants a chance to talk about everything. So, yes.
Please don't yell.
I will not yell. I can't promise
It's
that.
very intimidating.
Elaine, please.
I'm Elaine Maynard Adams, born, raised, educated in the city of New London, raised and educated a daughter here. We are both products of New London Public Schools. We're both proud New Londoners. Don't know if anybody in this room is familiar with something called the New London Streets Challenge. I know Sue is. It challenges participants to run, walk, or bike every street in the city of New London. So I did it this spring. And here's what I learned. In every neighborhood I went into, including some I never even knew existed, I saw pride of ownership. I saw everywhere examples of people who are proud New Londoners. So as I think to myself, and I keep hearing about what great potential we have as a city, and we do have great potential, and I've heard it for almost all of my 60 years, it's time that we stop talking about our potential and we start achieving our potential. I'm motivated to run for the board primarily because of recent events. Here's what I've learned as I've gotten to know the new superintendent and some of the board members. Everybody's working pretty hard to address those issues, to uncover the reasons for what happened, to make certain it'll never happen again. I think we have a good superintendent in place. I think the current board has done a pretty good job in supporting that superintendent. I think we need to finish what has been started. I think we need to make absolutely certain that our children are always safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jeff Hart?
Thanks and good evening. Thanks for putting this together for us. My name's Jeff Hart, and I'm currently the vice president of the board, finishing my first term, 2 years. And I'm running, I originally ran because I have kids in the school system. My oldest one is in first grade. My second one just started pre-K. We're going to be in New London for a long time. And I myself am a product of the Montville public school system. I bought a house here many, many years ago, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm a contractor. That's how I make my living, painting houses. So I understand living paycheck to paycheck. I understand how the families in our town work really hard, and we deserve the same quality of education that they have in the burbs in Fairfield County. And I think that one of the things that I'm most interested in fighting for is regionalism, regional cooperation, bringing in regional resources, because that's fair. That's what's fair. And I think our magnet system where kids from other towns come here and succeed here is the best advertisement. It's the best counter narrative to all the negative press that New London sometimes attracts. So having served for 2 years and seeing things up close, I have an agenda that's centered around justice Justice for our students means accountability for the people that may not have taken some of their responsibilities as seriously as they needed to. And forward-looking, that means restorative justice and looking at how we raise, especially our young boys, but how we raise children in a way without trauma. So I think that kind of future is the one where we won't have these really nasty societal problems. And my kids go to the system, so I want all of our children to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Catala?
My name is Jason Catala, and I'm seeking an 8th term on the New London Board of Education. The reason I'm running again is because of the recent events that have happened in the district, and a number of those things have happened right in front of the Board of Education's face. I've been preaching, I've been begging for policy that's stricter, and a lot of times it's gone on deaf ears. I'm policy chair now. I have a 6-year degree in leadership. I am certified to be a principal. I'm a parent of today is her 13th birthday, and she is another reason why I'm running. I have been on the board, and I've seen different boards and different superintendents. I've hired a number of different superintendents, and I am confident with the superintendent that we have now. I think if there's someone that's going to be able to move us forward, it is the current superintendent. But we have had this comfortableness in the past of keeping people in our district who hire friends of friends and who don't go through the proper vetting, and that is what has gotten us in trouble. That's the bottom line. It happened, and we have a superintendent who is preaching to us and promising us that this kind of thing can't happen again. As a senior member of the Board of Education, as someone who was there when all of this happened, and someone who, if you go back and look at my voting record and look at some of the things that I've been advocating for, you will see that a number of the things that have happened could have been prevented if some of the initiatives that I was pushing forward back in the 90s, back in the early 2000s. I go back to 1997 when I was first elected, and I hope to seek your support to get my 8th term on the Board of Education. I also served a term on the State Council, and there are a number of different degrees that I hold and other things as well that make me qualified.
Thank you. Regina? And everybody make sure you hold the microphone close so everybody can hear.
Good evening, everyone. I am Regina Mosley. I am a lifelong resident of New London, and I graduated from Grosso. I'm gonna just throw it out there. Just so it doesn't come out later, I didn't graduate from New London High. I graduated from Grosso Tech because I was a victim of bullying. And when I was in high school, there wasn't a place for us to go that was anti-bullying. So I did what was best and I ran away. More importantly, I'm a parent of students who have been bullied. And so I am trying my best to make sure that anti-bullying is a real, live, and tangible thing in New London public schools all around, not just for the students, but for the staff and the administration as well. More than anything else, I want for our kids to be safe. I said that 2 years ago when I ran the first time. I'm going to say it every day until the day that I die, that the kids in this community are all of our responsibility, not only the kids we give birth to or the kids that we adopt. All of the children in this district, young and old, belong to us, and we owe it to them to make sure that they are safe every day, no matter what building they're in, no matter what shopping center they're in or what street they're walking down. I grew up in New London, and as a kid, I knew and everyone knew me and everyone knew my parents. And there wasn't a person that you could walk by and not be spoken to. If you were talking out of turn or acting a certain way, somebody was going to let your mom know and you were going to get in trouble. I feel like now we have to bring that back. We have to bring back that unity to this community. This community is small enough that we all should know one another's children, and we should be able to feel responsible enough to tell them when they're doing wrong so that we can protect them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
Hi, my name is Susan Tierney. I'm a lifelong New London resident. I'm a business owner in New London, and I have 3 children that go to Nathan Hale Arts Magnet School. I am super happy and proud of the fact that my children love to go to school every day. There's no, well, there's a little fighting, but there's no major issues. They love school, they love their teachers, and they feel safe and comfortable in their environment. I want every child in New London to feel that way, and I believe that under the leadership of Cynthia Ritchie, we are going to get there. We've had a horrible year this year. There's been newspapers, radio, TV, we've been everywhere in a very negative light for New London, and we can do better. I feel like I'm always the person that is the glass is half full, and I want to be your representative to stand up for the kids of New London, because I believe that it's a positive place to raise your children and to grow up. And I'm telling you now, on the playground, when I pick up my kids at Nathan Hale, there is a parent I talked to this week. She drives from Plainfield because she does not like the school system in Plainfield. And she comes here because she loves it. And guess what? Now she's thinking of moving here or moving close. The magnet school system is there's a lot of criticism, and I don't know where I'm going with this, but I believe in it, and I think there's good things to come. Thank you.
Okay, Brian Doherty? Go, I'm sorry.
It's close.
I know, I was close, but I apologize.
It's close.
Correct all of us,
I'll go
please.
for it. So my name is Brian Dowdy. I'm running for Board of Ed, obviously. And unlike some of the other people up here, I did not grow up in New London. I grew up in Old Lyme. I went away to college, had one child, and moved back to Connecticut and decided to start our family, or more of our family, in New London, Connecticut. We lived here for about 5 years, and we made the decision that New London schools were not good. And we left, and we moved to Ledyard. And we resided there for over a decade. But when our kids got to 6th grade, or going into 6th grade, we gave them the choice of where do they want to go. And our first child chose Isaac. The second one chose Isaac. And the first one, when she had the opportunity to pick any high school around, she chose New London. So we have 3 kids now. 2 are graduates of New London High School, and 1 is a junior in high school. And Christine asked, why are you running? And I'm going to give a specific example. For me, I go back to 2017, and I'm a musician. And we have the arts pathway, and I wondered, where are our kids going if we don't have a high school? Where are they going to go? And I went to an administrator, and I simply said, in the fall of 2018, where are our kids going to go? And the answer was, when you find out, let me know. And to me, that was the wrong answer. It set me down a path of going to lots of committee meetings, school building and maintenance. I was on the superintendent committee with some of the other members here. Additionally, I'm on the facilities and program design. Myrna asked me to be on that. Thank you, Myrna. Additionally, on the city side, I chair the solid waste management task force. And I think my experience and drive is going to push our district forward, and I hope you consider me when we get to the ballot.
Thank you, and Charmaine Greger.
Hello, everybody. I'm Charmaine Greger, and I am a new kind of resident in London. I'm a product of Lawrence Memorial Hospital, Yale Hospital, but unfortunately I did not get my schooling here in New London. I was schooled in East Lyme, which is just our neighbor and kind of our competition, but we love them anyway because competition always makes us stronger. And I'm running for Board of Ed because I'm a firm believer in community, and community starts in our school because they are our future. The kids that are here are the symbolization of what could be the next generation of board members. I thoroughly believe that if we, as a community, can support the education, not just in the policies and the teachers, but right at the desk when the child comes in and they feel welcome and they feel that their voice is being heard and that the teachers aren't speaking at them but speaking to them in a way that encourages them to be their whole self. That's my major reason. I have no children, so I don't know what it's like to be a parent, but I am an aunt, and I do have lots of nieces and nephews that go to all of the schools. And there are a lot of us. So I do get to hear their perspectives on a regular basis about how they feel when they go to school. And I do think that there's room for change. And I do believe that that change starts with the people that are sitting here in front of you.
Thank you. Welcome to the game. All right, a couple more rules. We are going to ask a series of questions. There are some elephants sitting in the corner, and I've gotten a lot of questions written in. And here comes more. And a lot of them are dealing really the same stuff. So we're going to tackle that right off the bat. And we're going to allow a 1-minute response, and everybody on the panel is allowed 2 30-second responses to anybody's question. Just raise your hand and we'll give you 2. Try to use them properly. You can use them all as one, but you get 60 seconds total to respond to somebody else, okay? That's all night. I remember last 2 elections ago, you got out 70 of them. Yes?
Are you going to be asking the same question to multiple people, or are we switching it up?
I will be switching it up, but the first question is going to go first to the incumbents and then to the challengers. And this is, I'm kind of going to do my best to roll 5 questions into one, okay? And I'm going to start with Jason because he is the senior man here. Yes?
Sorry, for the slow people in the room.
Yes.
We get 2 opportunities and only 2.
We're gonna call this challenges. So if I ask Rob a question and you have something you'd like to say, you just raise your hand, then I'll give you a chance to respond to his
I
question.
can only do it twice.
You can only do it twice, or one really long one.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody got it? Yeah. So everybody gets 1 minute to answer this question. So I'm going to start with Jason. Jason, the school board is really tasked with 2 things: budget and setting policy. Can you tell us, everybody, what policies you propose to protect the children?
So there was a policy that I pulled out of policy. There was a policy on background checks for students who are 18 years, students that work in our district and work with our kids who are 18 years old. I wanted those students who are 18 years old to be background checked. I brought that to the board, and the board substantially voted that down. They felt that students who are 18 would be vetted by the administration and that they did not need to have a background check. I did a lot of research on that, where there are people in camps who work with kids who are 15, 16 who have background checks. So that was shot down by the current Board of Education. There was a policy where we came up where I wanted there to be limits put to who we hire to put in front of children. That there should be a time frame if someone has committed a crime that deals with children or that is serious enough where we don't want them around children. And the Board of Education Policy Committee would not support putting language in that. Granted, there was some risk with the law, but I thought there was no leeway. We definitely should have put some language in that policy that stated that anybody who has these convictions, like some within the last 4 years, 4 or 5 years of
time. Jeffrey, same question. What policy did you propose that would have protected the children?
Well, some folks might want to take all the credit for passing the policy, but we work on them together. So there was a slate of about 30 Shipman and Goodwin policies that we went through and approved recently, and that included some bullying, some accountability, but what happened was not because of a lack of policy. There were lots of good policies in place that were not being followed. People were supposed to be fingerprinted, et cetera, et cetera. We're getting the results of a human resources audit back very soon, and so that's going to inform where the policies go. But getting people to enforce those means accountability. And specifically, we're looking at where evaluations being done. Is there a paper trail? Because what we come up with over and over again is, well, we heard so-and-so had a problem. Well, we can't substantiate it because there was no record of it. And I think I have great confidence that Cynthia Ritchie is attacking this administratively, but wherever the holes are in that report is where we're going to focus.
All right, the follow-up question to that would be, since you brought it up, when that report comes back and identifies people who should not be hired because they did not qualify, or positions had their names changed conveniently so that they would be qualified. Are you going to call for those people to be terminated? And more importantly, are you going to hold the people accountable who did those things?
Yes, and I have to be very careful about how I qualify this because some of these are under investigation, will come to us as a board, and we have to act as a jury. But if anyone has been taking hiring, if anyone has been not giving hiring practices the gravity that they're due, those people should go.
Thank you. Regina, same original question, which is your job, one of your two jobs is really to set policy. What policies did you propose that would have protected the children?
So, I don't know all policy numbers per se.
Just a general idea.
What we've really been pushing for is to get in compliance with all of our policies. So we've had a lot of pushback with policies these past 2 years because all the policies that the district currently running on are from 2015. So there have been new legislatures, every year there's a new legislature, there's a new change. So we're really trying to just get into compliance. I don't necessarily know that it's a policy, but it's time for us to clean house, so to speak. We cannot continue to hire people that we met on the street. We cannot continue to hire people that we know from 2 years ago because we went to a concert with them or they were our sister's boyfriend. I mean, we have to be serious about who we're hiring and how we're doing that hiring process. I'm glad that we're going through an HR audit because those things are what's going to form the policies that are going to be created now. There's a lawyer that's going through the auditing process as well. Sorry, the llama's telling me to be quiet.
Thank you. Susan, I believe you're the last incumbent, so I'm going to ask the same question. Policy is one of your two major focuses. Could you present or propose any policies that may have protected the children from some of the circumstances?
So I am on the policy committee. I have not actually proposed a policy myself, but I am totally for the fact that the superintendent wants to update all of our policies, get them into compliance, bring us up to date with the state. I would be in favor of throwing out the whole New London district policy book. I'm sorry. Bringing in a Shipman and Goodman policy book and going from there. As long as we're in compliance and we're following the law, I guess that's that on policy, but if we're talking about human resources, the staff has been trained. They're going through all the training processes. But I think the superintendent is doing, checking the boxes. And I think we just need to follow on that path.
Thank you. You want to take one of your 30s?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like it's important that everyone in the room know now that there is an actual fingerprinter on site. So everyone that's being hired now is being fingerprinted, and they're not welcome into the school to be fully employed until those checks come back. So that's something that's really important, and it wasn't happening before. People who are already working in the district are being fingerprinted again because of this unfortunate event that happened here. And so those people, should things come back on them, it'll be up to the district to decide if they're going to continue to be employed here or not. So I just feel like it's important for everyone to know that fingerprinting is being done on site and things are happening swiftly here.
I think the fingerprinting, to follow that up, is important, obviously, but if our policy is to hire convicted felons and they admit to being felons, of course we know they're felons. So what's the difference?
So that's not in a policy that it's okay to hire convicted felons. What's in the policy, and which clearly wasn't being followed, was that you had to divulge that.
Right.
Now, if you divulge that you're a convicted felon, but you were not convicted because of a crime that's related to children, that past administration was giving people the benefit of the doubt. And I think that even deserves a harder look. Now, honestly, for me, I don't feel like just because you're a felon, you're no good to do anything. You know what I mean? That people can clean themselves up and they're capable of doing that. Everyone deserves a second chance. But if you are convicted of a felony and it has to do with children, absolutely not. You do not belong in a school district.
Thank you.
That's just my opinion.
Okay. Jason, did I take it 1:30?
Something else very important, I think, is the policy is only as good as you were saying if we have a policy in place and it's not being followed. So that's on the administration. The Board of Education implements the policy, and obviously there's been many times where policy is not being followed. The other thing is that over the past couple of years, I have tried tirelessly to get a human resource report that lists every new hire for everybody in our district. Every single meeting, we should get a full list with resumes from custodian up to a principal, up to everybody who works in our district. Their name should be on the paper, and the Board of Education should be informed. It's a checklist so that the board, 7-member board can also go and look and vet these people. So we would know if there were people being hired because of this nepotism, because of this neglect to follow policy.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So I want to go back and talk a little bit more about hiring practices and those kinds of things and the failures that we know happen. But before we do that, I want to give the people who are not incumbents an opportunity to respond similarly and tell us, do you have any ideas for policies, procedures, or any new ideas going forward that would be helpful in preventing a similar event such as what has happened in the last few years? And we can start with Mr. Pirro. Is that okay?
Sure. The way I understood you to be policy, we're a policy board. So when you say policy, I'm talking, they should be bringing initiatives to the board. So that's the way I envisioned the question. So,
Correct.
So my understanding in looking at the board is that I don't see anything that's brought to the board from an individual board member. What I see is a dysfunctional organizational chart. The board meets as 3 members to put together an agenda. I think that's inadequate. When I served on the city council, if you wanted to bring a policy initiative, you write out the initiative or the policy you want, and if it has to go to committee for further review, you do it. The way the board's set up right now, the 3 members on this committee can squash any policy discussion. It doesn't make any sense. So that would be the first thing. I'd get together the other 7 members, if I was one of them, and say, hey, this is what we have to do. We have to change the structure of the board and the way we put things on the agenda. The other thing I would do is, from a budgeting standpoint, I'd start at a zero-based budgeting. Nobody can understand this budget that's out there. I'm sorry, it does not make any sense. I was the chair of the finance on the council for 10 years. I understand budgets. Makes no sense. You can't attach what goes with what.
Okay, time, sorry. Those silent llamas are very sneaky. Charmaine, same question to you. I'm skipping around a little bit just to make it a little more fun, but same question to you. What policies or ideas or initiatives do you have or would you bring to the board to prevent a similar tragedy such as what's happened?
I agree with Rob about a lot of the things that he said about members being behind closed doors and not giving the group the full transparency of knowing every and all policy that comes into play. And I believe that's for any kind of committee, the option to address things within your small circle is only so that you can better acquaint yourself with those kinds of language so that you can then transfer those to the rest of your group and then make those decisions together. I don't think that any policy or an action should happen without full recognition of the board, and then also, again, with community response. So when policy comes up, that I feel like we should have a forum of some sort that invites families and students to come in to hear where the policy stands and where it's going to go.
Thank you. And Brian, same question.
Sure. So I'm not on the board, but I've done a lot of committee work. So I'm going to give you a specific example of how I feel. I Code of Conduct Committee a couple months ago, and on the Code of Conduct, there's the student responsibilities, the parent and guardian responsibilities, and the school administration and staff responsibilities. And when I read through the documents, school administration and staff responsibilities was missing something I thought was vital, especially in light of the Benny Dover situation. It didn't have anything about being a court-mandated reporter. So as a parent, I don't know that the staff is obligated to report things. So the code of conduct now reads that one of their responsibilities is to follow state of Connecticut law as a court-mandated reporter. We have to assure the community that we're doing our job, or our teachers are doing our job, or administrators are doing their job. So it's in there now. So it's a tangible thing I've done to try to make a difference on the code of conduct versus policy.
Thank you. And Elaine, same question.
So let me first say that I was on the board from 1991 to 1999, then again from 2007 to 2009. And in those years, we had an extremely robust policy committee, a policy manual that covered everything. And when I say everything, I do mean everything. Gordon, you talked about the roles of the board being setting a budget and developing policy, but you missed one. The one you missed is about hiring and evaluating the superintendent. Because at the end of the day, the responsibility for hiring rests with the superintendent of schools. Let's not lose sight of the fact that the wheels started to come off this bus during the years when New London was under control of the State Department of Education. So I don't want to point fingers. I want to look forward. I want to say, I want a policy audit. I want an HR audit to say, these are the good policies, these are the weak ones, and here's what you need to do, and these are the missing ones, and let's fill in the gaps. And then let's hold those people who actually do the hiring responsible for the people they hire.
Thank you. All right, a couple of quicker questions. Sue. Yes. Well, actually, you're not going to have a minute for these. A couple of quick questions. If, in fact, I'm going to go right down the line. What about Sue? If, in fact, because one of the tragedies is is at the legislative level, and that is mandated reporters, there's a statute of limitations that's very short. So it's very possible that there were many, many, many people in the school that knew or should have known what was going on. And I'm not just talking about the particular incident, should have known of wrongdoing that should have been reported, that didn't report, but the statute is wrong on that. Do you believe if you find out that somebody a year and a half after the fact did not report, that is a violation of your policies that rises to the level of termination? Rob?
Can you repeat that? I was a little,
Well, I had to go back.
confusing. Even your wife's shaking her head. She agrees.
All right.
But I'll try and answer it this way. And I think Elaine was right on the money in terms of we set policy. The board sets policy. I'm not a we part yet, but I hope to be. The board sets policy. The only employee of the board is the superintendent, the organizational chart. You have to evaluate that superintendent. I believe they just did. But you should be giving them a follow-up every 3 months. You should be checking in. There should be goals during the year. And obviously the goals that we should be addressing, one of those would be personnel, and are we evaluating them? And how are we evaluating them? And that, we hold that person accountable. I know that's not been something that we've been doing, but we hold that person accountable. The only employee that we have is the superintendent. We can't hire and fire teachers. Okay, there is a negotiated process, there's a union contract. The superintendent is responsible to the board. We have to make sure we communicate our goals to that person and that our top priorities are this issue of the lack of accountability in the personnel aspect.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we won't go down the line because Rob kind of tied that up very nicely. Elaine, I am going to ask you, having been through this for so long, and you were a part of this process for so very long, your perspective is welcomed and probably very unique. I guess the question would be, what do you see as the biggest challenge and the first thing you would want to work on?
Are we talking just hiring, or are we talking?
No, I'm talking as a member of the board.
Well, I think that recent events have cast a cloud on this over the entire district. So I think one of the first things we have to do is be open and honest and public with, we don't need to reveal the contents of a police report, but we need to assure the public that we've been advised, we know what's in it, and we're taking the proper action. I think the first thing we have to do is begin to take steps to heal the community, to make the community aware of the fact that we take it seriously, we know what went wrong, and we're doing our best to fix it. And that's a team effort, regardless of what your party affiliation is, whether you're a parent, a grandparent, or somebody who lives across the street. It's a team effort, it's a city effort, and it requires all of us to do it.
Thank you. Jeffrey, how do you believe you can help affect the healing to start? Because it seems to me we haven't got all the results yet, and we can't really start the healing until those results are in.
Can I go big picture here, because this is not a New London specific problem. This is a problem in our society where people who have been traumatized visit that trauma on other people. And so I honestly think that in the way our parents grew up and our grandparents grew up, there was daily trauma, and it became normal. And the way I grew up, to be socialized to be a man, it was a very rough process. And I know that the way we raise our kids is going to be able to affect that in the future. To me, we might have finally gotten to the point where there are enough normal people, untraumatized people, to be a mirror to us to see what it's supposed to look like, but we also might be the first generation in history to be able to step back far enough to see the scope of this problem. So there's no quick fix for that. We're going to have to raise a new generation.
This next question is for Jason. Jason, my understanding is that in many ways the superintendent, the last few superintendents have had pretty much unfettered authority in hiring with very little vetting from the board. Do you think that that's one of the failures, and do you support changing that or coming up with some sort of policy where the board has more input into hiring?
So I just want to say that, just in response a little bit to what Mr. Hart was saying, there's no cultural addition, there's no excuse for any type of those activities to be happening in any buildings. You send your kid to school and you want them to be safe. I send my daughter off to school, and if something like that were to happen, I would tear the school down. So back to that question, definitely. I've been fighting for that. The board needs to approve hires. Right now we approve administration hires. Right now there should be a Board of Education member on hiring committees for teachers, or all administrators, and that has happened, hasn't happened for years, but recently it has happened. The board, in my opinion, I've been begging for this as well, and it will happen before I die, that's why I'm running again. We will get a document at every single board meeting of all new hires, and it'll list their salary, it'll list their degree, and it'll tell you where they're going to be teaching at, or working at, custodian, paraprofessional. We will have to approve that document. The board will get it on a Monday, and we'll approve it on a Thursday, or not approve it on a Thursday. We'll go into executive session, because I see that Jason Catala is on here, and I know that he's done X, Y, and Z. And until that happens, I'm going to keep running for this board.
All right,
we need
thank
that
you.
document.
We have to cut, but Regina, same question to you. Do you see that unfettered hiring by the superintendent or any superintendent is one of the factors that's problematic?
I think in the past it was problematic, only to go back to what I said before about hiring your sister's boyfriend and your uncle's cousin and all of those people that you go to family barbecues with. I definitely think that has been a problem in the past. I don't see that happening now. One, because our superintendent, let's face it, she's not from New London, right? So she doesn't have that political stake, so to speak, of the whalers breathing down her back to give them a job because their father is, so-and-so in the community and holds this much power in the community and can take her down, so to speak. I feel like a lot of that, I hate to say Gestapo because it's kind of derogatory, but that's the mentality that was happening in New London with the hiring, and I feel like we've moved past that. I feel like the superintendent she's our employee, so do we need to hire teachers? I don't think so. I think we definitely need to be aware of who's in the building. I think we should get some type of report, but I don't feel like we should be micromanaging in that aspect.
Silent Llama, sorry. And Sue, same question to you because you are an incumbent, so I'd like your perspective on that.
Thank you. So my perspective is that when I think back to the past 2 years of what I've done on the board, I'm kind of like, well, I attended a lot of meetings and, I was on this committee or this committee. But the things that I'm most proud of is, I was on the interview committee for the superintendent. I was on the interview committee for the director of social services and family support. I was on the interview committee for the new director of Benny Dover Jackson Middle School. The superintendent or the building administrators have sent out invitations to me all summer long to come and sit on an interview. I hope that's the same with everybody on the board. I could not attend all, obviously, you can only do what you can do, but I was very proud of the fact that I was there. There's nobody getting hired anymore for who they know or where they come from, and that's my true belief.
Okay, thank you. And to Brian and Charmaine, the question that I have for you, since you're new candidates, is what's the one initiative or goal that you would have if you were elected to the board? What's your primary? What's your big ticket item?
So I think for me, the big ticket item, there's a gulf between the Board of Ed and city. We just bash each other all the time. And it doesn't have to be. I go to city council meetings all the time. The only time a Board of Ed member shows up is budget season. Council members don't go to Board of Ed. They hardly go. It has to be a team effort. I mean, there's two budgets. Work together, make it happen. And so the big ticket item would be find some common ground and make New London better together. The school district is going to bring people here if it's good. If it's not good, it's going to push people away. City council should want to come to us, and Board of Ed should want to come to city council more than once a year. So the basic idea is partner together and make New London better.
I think that my biggest ticket item is the non-lapsing fund that has come up several times over almost the last decade, I guess now, and the ability for the Board of Ed to put out a statement that is in coincidence with the City Council and that there aren't amendments to that do not give the schools the best form of the policy. So the non-lapsing fund, for those that don't know, is a fund that revolves every year where you can take money that is left over and bank it for different building facility maintenances, and we have not had that. And with the lack of public works in our schools, now I think that is a valued asset. It's an asset to our schools and our school system and to the students that go to the schools.
Thank you. All right, so this next question I'm going to address to Jeff Hart, because you did talk about a history of trauma and what's happening societally. What's interesting to me about your comments is my understanding is that the climate specialist position was funded by a grant called, I think it's Project Prevent. And part of the reason for that, and part of the reason New London qualified, is because we have so much of our population is exposed to violence and trauma in the household and around them. And so in light of your comments, my question to you is, do you see what happened at Benny Dover as a failure of a few bad actors, or do you see it as an administrative systemic failure?
I think on the one hand, we were blindsided by the actions of one individual, and that hurt, especially because he was so trusted. I think if you had gone the day before all these allegations come out and asked about him, his students and the families would have said he was one of their most trusted people, and that really hurts. So that revisiting that trauma was very significant. As far as the Project Prevent grant, I think there's clearly been administrative systemic failures. I talked about some of them before, but I don't think you could see him coming. That's why, I have 3 little boys at home, and when we talk about no means no, don't touch me, and giving space to people. This, I try to give them that this is life and death, that when you grow up, this is going to be life and death. I hope I answered your question, Adam.
Yeah, and I don't mean to put you on the spot. It's just interesting because of the way that position was funded. It's funded on the very basis that we have so many vulnerable people, and we put a predator in there. So I think it's important for people to know whether or not candidates see that as a bad actor or systemic administrative failure. And I guess for the incumbents, my question, maybe Regina, you could feel that as well. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that what happened at Benny Dover was a few bad actors, or was it a systemic failure?
I'm not even sure if I can answer that question the way I want to answer it, because I don't want to be sued.
No, I understand. That's fair.
Honest.
Yeah, that's fair, and I don't want anyone to say anything that they're not comfortable saying. I'm just curious, and as a voter, I'm really curious how the board feels about that.
Yeah, about to go to jail, y'all. I feel I don't want to make light of it, but honestly, I feel like it was a systemic failure. And it goes back to that hiring of who you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really all boils down to, and I hate to put it all in one big pot, but if you look at the past hiring practices, it's been people that the administration has known. And so without those fail-safes in place of proper hiring and proper vetting, those things happened, and we were failed as a community systemically by the administration who was in charge of that building.
Thank you. Jason, do you believe increasing the budget is a primary need to increase our scores? Because it seems that we've proven time and time again, extra money does not really do it. So is it money, or is it something else, or some combination of?
The Board of Education is more than half of the city's budget.
Yeah.
I do not think pumping more money into the school budget will increase our scores. I think the fact that we need, number one, as Rob said, our budget, I can barely read it. We had the worst budget ever. We sat in a room for hours. None of us, no incumbent can say, maybe Jeff, because he was a part of the process, can say you can understand that budget. So not pumping money in, we don't have a curriculum. We need a curriculum. We need a curriculum among each school that flows, has a scope and sequence, and that is followed. As I visited the high school and the middle school, they did their best to tell me what they're doing, but there really is not a curriculum. We've had Teach to One, we've had the Literacy Collaborative program where we spent millions of dollars, and we scrapped it, just like that. Cynthia Ritchie came in and scrapped it. Millions of dollars right down our toilet on this collaborative program that was supposed to be the savior. Teach to One was the savior. I could go on with all these other programs that were the saviors, and look at our, now we're the lowest in the state in our schools. So it's not the money. It's how we have people in place now. We have curriculum supervisors, and they're going to be the ones who are
Rob? Rob is exercising one of his 30 seconds.
Okay, I thought it was a minute. All right. Hold on, mic's on. Okay. So I think it really gets down to zero-based budgeting, okay? You start at zero, and you have the department heads come in and basically tell you why they need this money, okay? So it's basically a purpose and a desired outcome. When I was on the city council and I was the mayor, the city manager wanted a risk manager. Say, okay, what is the purpose of this? What is the desired outcome? We're gonna save money because we're gonna look at our workers' comp, and we saved money on that. The police chief at the time wanted a deputy chief. We told her, you're gonna have to pay for it in your own budget. What is the desired outcome? And she saved over $500,000 in her budget. The Board of Ed has control through a budgetary process, right, for desired outcomes. And it's through the budgetary process. And to get back at what happened in our school system, you had 4 different principals at the middle school. Nobody knew who was in charge. That was the problem. And we weren't holding those individuals accountable. And it was through the budgetary process that the board approved. We have to know our roles, okay?
And that's both of your 30 seconds. Sorry. Susan, as the last incumbent who hasn't discussed this, could you please give us your opinion?
So I would like to say that in Cynthia's first 6 months, she was here July, we had to do the budget in February, and she decided to go from a centralized budget, or from individual budgets. Every school had their own budget. Budget, 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 budget. She said, no way. One big budget. We're all coming in to one big budget. So I think we're on the right track, and hopefully we can go forward from here.
Thank you. Brian, I know you've been involved with the numbers game at both the board side and the city side. So you've lived with these numbers for some time. Have you identified any areas of possible savings, or if not savings, things that could be allocated to another use?
Are you talking about buildings or anywhere?
Anything.
Not sure if I identified anything in particular. I think most people say we're top heavy. And I think that should be studied at all the schools. I mean, you look at the high school campus, and we have 5 administrators there. Do we need 5 administrators? I personally, I think we could do out one, maybe, and allocate that money into paraprofessionals or another teacher, which is in the classroom. It would make a huge difference. People say central office is heavy. I'm not sure if that's heavy. I don't think so. But I think it's studying where we're putting our money, and we're getting the best bang out for our buck. Will more money help in the classroom? Sure. It makes it easier, but let's get better administrators and better teachers who can lead the way forward for our district. So I'm not really answering your question.
Yeah.
But move the money around to get a better bang for your buck. If we can take an administrator making 170 grand and get 2 or 3 paraprofessionals and maybe a teacher, I'll take the 4 to 1 any day.
Thank you. Yes, Elaine. Elaine for her 30 seconds.
This is my first 30 seconds.
It is.
Let's be clear. Okay. I do budgets for a living. In my real life, I'm the VP of Finance for a manufacturing company, so I have a pretty good handle on budgets. So let's just be clear. With the $70 million or so board budget, $70 million is not spent on classroom instruction. There's busing, there's heat, there's electricity, there's athletics, there's food service, there's health services. There's a whole lot of things that are wrapped up in that budget. So let's be very clear what we're talking about here. Is there room to redirect resources into the classroom or into curriculum? Yeah, I've been through the budget. I have a list in my head of what I think we can live without. I've been through the budget, but what I have not done is evaluated the necessity of each of those things that I think we can do without. So between now and when the board begins its budget deliberations in February, I think it's incumbent on all of us to do that, to take a look at what do we think we can live without, what's an essential position, and where can we redirect resources. And just so you know, I have every intention of being down at City Council next year begging for more money, because that's what we do.
Thank you. And that is both of your 30 seconds.
Okay.
Charmaine.
I'll take leaves.
Charmaine, I don't know if you had an opportunity to actually look through the budget as a relative newcomer, but if you have any thoughts on areas of savings, and if not, perhaps there's an initiative that you would like to start or like to see in the school system.
I've glanced at the budget, and like most people say, it is pretty deep. And I definitely do think that there is room for some changes in where we spend our money, especially when it comes to the top-heavy side of it. But I think that we really do need to kind of scratch what we have and really dig deep into the people that we're hiring and their roles and the experience levels that they have and how they facilitate their classrooms as well. And we need to make sure we put that in line with what we're considering their pay and how that affects the rest of the budget and the whole budget. And again, that non-lapsing fund is something that would be beneficial to the budget because it does provide extra money for those facility maintenances that we don't necessarily allocate for each year.
Thank you. And here's a question for everybody, and maybe we can just get a show of hands. Every time we've done this, and I've heard it for many years, We have, in fact, I think Anthony Nolan mentioned it as his achievement last time. Do we have a need for duplicative services for finance director? And so would everybody like to see us keep 2 finance directors?
I mean, you're talking the city and the school board?
No, 2 with the board. We have 2 on the board.
No, wait, two heads. Board and city?
No, he's meaning, he's saying that you have 2
Currently.
finance directors at the board level
I apologize.
Melissa Flores, she makes.
She's not in office.
All right.
She makes this every.
How much does she make?
About 120.
She makes 120, and how much does Rob Funk make?
150.
Do we need them both?
No.
That's the question. Raise your hands. Do we need them both? 3? Okay. Second part of that question, another show of hands. As part of the bonding, I believe one of the considerations or conditions was that we were going to consolidate the city and the board finance directors. Does anybody on the panel think that that is something we should do?
Should.
We should.
Combined.
Yes. So just Rob and Brian believe, and Charmaine believe.
This is only a raise your hands thing?
It's just a raise your hands thing.
It's not a raise your hands question. It's not, it can't be a yes or no. Because
Okay.
there's no clear cut, communication between the school board and the city. I mean, we've been banging our heads for the past 2 years to try and have meetings and have people look at our budget and understand what we're asking for. And it doesn't always happen. So with that said, how can we expect for us to get what we fairly need and for the city to get what they fairly need? It doesn't seem like there would be much equity in that, because clearly if the finance director works for the mayor, right, the finance director is going to do what's in the best interest of the mayor so that the city gets more of the money. And then that takes away from the school and us being able to have what we need. So I don't think that you can, I don't think that it would have to be a whole separate entity that's nonpartisan for each building, so to speak. So a whole separate finance department that's not.
A third-party independent finance department because you believe the city wouldn't be fair to the board?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's an answer. That's your answer as well? That's Charmaine's answer as well. Rob, you have something to add?
Yeah, I think that when I left the city council, that we were doing this. We were going down the road. I believe Mayor Pastro was sat with the board to try and pick a finance director, and they came up with Rob Funk, and I guess they parted ways at that point. But we were moving down the road. Governor Lamont has basically said, he had an education seminar that he wanted back of the house, that he wants boards of eds and city council to look at the back of the house. Finance, IT. We have to look at infrastructure. Mayor Pastro is looking at infrastructure. He wants to look at trying to get rid of some of the buildings. Maybe we can jointly share office spacing. There's no meeting of the minds. The mayor and the superintendent, if I was on the board, I'd direct the superintendent to meet with the mayor monthly on initiatives that we give her. And then I would meet with the city council quarterly because they hold the purse strings. So I think we have to have an understanding of where we're headed. I would personally want an agreement so nobody would have more power over this position. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to answer that question? Please.
So we definitely need the independent opinion of someone, and if we didn't have it, we'd have to hire it out around budget time. Also, if you've seen Rob Funk around budget time, or the city's finance director around budget time, they're working 80 hours a week. I don't know how a combined finance director would prepare both budgets without hiring additional assistants anyway. And I'm actually trying to get rid of contractors, not get new ones. I think we have this tendency to say, oh, we're going to get rid of this, and we're going to save money, and then we go out and get contracted services, and there goes our budget, and then some. So that's one thing. And on the other hand, we do have that troubled relationship with the city. Other towns, I've asked at the Learn regional board meetings, other towns do not do this. One that tried went back to the other way, and it's for exactly that reason. We're going to need an independent decision. I need to be able to trust that number, and I need him to be available to me when I call him, because I'm on the chair of finance. We have, a really good working relationship.
Quickly.
So I think it's important so this damaged relationship between the city and the Board of Ed has been happening 10, 20 years now. We've been trying to combine these IT departments, and we have this Munis software that was supposed to be the savior, and we're going to combine these two departments. And then the city went out and hired their finance person, so the Board of Ed, Dr. Rivera on his side said, you know what, I'm going to go hire Rob Funk. And then we clashed. So from then on, there's been from that point on, it's been a clash. And it's not as simple as some of us might think. We have tried to meet with the city. We have directed the superintendent, and it hasn't happened. And it's just the friction. I don't know if that friction can ever go away, because it's been there forever. It's all about money. Money is the crutch of it all.
Thank you.
I have a question. I'm going to direct this one to Sue, because you talked about Superintendent Ritchie. We've been through so many superintendents in a very short period of time. And obviously, if we've had superintendents who are native to New London, but their longevity wasn't there, Cynthia Ritchie is from out of town. She really has very little, need to go through what she's going through. She's going to need a lot of support, because in my estimation, the worst thing that could happen is we need another superintendent. So my question to you is, what are you doing, or what do you think the board can do to be supportive to her so we don't have more turnover, because that so negatively affects our entire school district?
This is kind of a simple answer, but it's just about being positive, right? If you believe somebody and you believe they're here for the right reasons, then you believe that. If you think she's a farce and she's going to move away in a year, then you can believe that and you can be part of that problem. But I've seen her in a year. She's created a district improvement plan. All of her initiatives have been tied to student success. She's hiring people, she's moving people around. Everything is for the kids. I mean, if you're at convocation, she's created a new, I can't remember the name of the campaign, but if you go on YouTube and you Google, tell your story. I mean, it's all about the kids with her. And if you don't believe that, then maybe you're part of the problem.
So you're happy with her, but I think my question more was, is there something that the board can do to ensure that she has the support that she needs? Because you're not casual observers in the process, right? I mean, it's your job to evaluate her.
Right, and we should evaluate her.
Right, but she works for you and she needs help. I mean, my feeling is she needs a lot of help. So Mike, I'm going to leave that as an open question for any of you. Charmaine, I see that your hand is up. I'm happy to have you answer that question. What would you do? Do you feel that she needs extra support under the circumstances, and what would you do to provide that?
I wouldn't necessarily call it extra support, but I feel like everybody needs to have somebody that they can lean on to bounce ideas off of and to collaborate with and to understand the story she already started the dialogue about. Is she doesn't know the story of New London, and she doesn't really know the community, and by embracing that idea and that initiative, I think she's making the steps to do that.
Thanks. Do you want to weigh in? I'd love that.
Just a quick thing. So I think we all have to support her if we're on the board of ed. But part of our job is to hold her accountable, right? And it's not a bad thing. Hold her accountable. But I also think for everybody in the audience, go to board of ed meetings. Tell her she's doing a good job. Bring up the bad parts. It's all of our responsibilities to show up and hold the board of ed accountable, the superintendent accountable, and everybody else. No one shows up. It's on us sometimes to create success. get there, tell your story, and force our representatives or employees to do better for New London.
Thank you. Jason, you've had your hand up.
Sorry.
I'm usually the biggest critic of a superintendent, but Mrs. Ritchie, you talking about her needing help. Through all that she's been through, and all that we have experienced in this district, I think if any superintendent, she probably needed them. She took it professionally and handled it the best that I've seen any superintendent handle it. We did do her evaluation, and a lot of the evaluation we was dealt with. There are a lot of different categories that we have to score her on, and I think that, as Susan was saying, she is for the kids, and we finally have someone who really is not like a business director, but someone who is student-centered and does put the kids first and really does care about the kids in our district. And I'm willing to support her and again hold her accountable for the areas that need improvement.
And Elaine, did you want to weigh in on that?
The average tenure of an urban school superintendent in Connecticut is 3 years. It's a brutally difficult job. We don't need to make it any more difficult by engaging in unprofessional behavior, personal attacks, or anything else. We can have disagreements and we can be professional about it. We can do that without getting personal, without sniping to the newspaper, without making comments that we don't attach our names to. There's a lot of room to support this superintendent. There's also a way to handle disagreements. Back in the day, I came of age with Dr. Reset. One of the first things we learned was we had plenty of policy differences and we could argue at board meetings, but when the meeting broke up, we all went down to Mr. G's and had a pitcher of beer and some pizza. Or soda. I had beer, Rob had soda. Those are the kinds of activities those are the things we need to do. We can disagree, we can say to any superintendent of schools, I don't agree with what you just did, I think your premise is wrong, whatever. But we can keep it professional. We don't have to make it personal.
And Ralph?
Thank you. Elaine's right about the issues. If you look at and I've stayed up late looking at some of the meetings that are online that you go and look at, and some of them are very contentious. I think you got to tell the superintendent, these are our goals. This is what I want to achieve. To me, it would be zero-based budgeting. It would be infrastructure. It would be, hey, we have a 2014 vote by the citizens of this community to make improvements to the high school and the middle school, and there's no shovel in the ground. That's one of your main priorities. We have paraprofessionals who voted to get in a union 2 years ago, and still today there is no agreement. That's a problem. Those are the things that you give goals and objectives. You let the superintendent know where you're coming from. The problem has been, from what I see, is the superintendent is doing policy and she's doing administration. You can't have that person doing both roles. So from my perspective, I work with the city manager. I did go out and talk with that person and have a good relationship, but I also knew there was a dividing line. We can't be best buddies if I want to challenge that person. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Sorry, it's a lot of time.
Okay. Regina. So there is a tension, and first thing I have to say, the questions we received, many of them are dealing with issues that you wouldn't deal with because they're more in the schools with individual students. But I think if I can put them all together, and it kind of spells out the frustration that many of us are hearing outside, and that is there's continued bullying. There's problems with people changing grades. There's underreporting, systematic underreporting of problems within the school. Now, I understand that in order to maintain the 25% out-of-district population that we need, it is in our best interest to not report things. However, the people who get hurt are the people in this room and our kids. And that was in my opinion, that is a very big part of what's happened and why we have the problem we have. My question is, because we're going to get a report here soon. There's 4 parallel reports coming out. And when those come out, you guys will have a lot of information. How do you strike the balance between not wanting to discourage out-of-district people from coming and still be true to the anti-bullying message you said earlier?
So I feel like we're doing ourselves a disservice if we don't report, because we don't know there's a problem if we don't talk about it, right? We don't know there's a problem if we don't report it. We have to change the narrative and rewrite the story, right? So right now, the New London Day controls the narrative. They only report bad things that happen within the school. I don't see a positive story unless it's a win for the football team. I'm gonna just be honest. So we have to celebrate what's good here. The reporting of bullying has to be, and we have to hold those people accountable. The administration has to be held accountable so that those numbers are reported correctly, right? Because again, if we don't know there's a problem, we can't actively work on the problem, right? So I guess to answer your question, the hope is that the transparency is seen by the parents who come from out of district, because that's what we need to work on. We need to work on the transparency, telling the whole truth, telling the whole story, and making sure that those numbers are accurate so that we can fix the problems that are still a part of the story. Right?
Thank you. Jeffrey, in the same vein, you understand the balance I'm talking about. If all of the stories get out there, and I disagree 100% because the majority of the recent stories from the New London Day regarding the New London School District have been positive. They see things like, please support Richie, see if there's a chance. There's pictures of people in front of schools celebrating. Meanwhile, in 3 other school districts, they're acting as though the crimes of the century have happened. So I'm going to respectfully disagree, okay? How do you, that was respectful.
No, I'm just saying I'll respectfully disagree back.
Fair enough. Jeffrey, how do you strike that balance? Because there is bullying going on. There has been, on top of the things you know about, there is much more. The question is, how do we not know what's going on when there's parents beating on the doors trying to be heard and not being heard? They've given up. Many of them have given up. What do you say to them?
I am less concerned with the PR problem than with the problem. So what to say to the parents is another issue, but to speak to the actual problem, I think administrators and people in mid-management have succeeded in the past, not just in our district, this is in general, by making problems go away. And so, you know, as a parent, I haven't been afraid to go over someone's head or take the fight up to the next level. And when I meet a parent who has hit a wall, I like to show them a way around that wall, over that, you know, to the next level. And this should send a message to those administrators that if you report a problem and you're not going to get punished for that, like, because your numbers look bad. And I hope that the superintendent backs me up on that. But if you don't report a problem, I will let you twist in the wind when your boss finds out. And I hope that really lands with everybody.
Thank you. Ryan, same question.
I'm going to do 30 seconds, is that, or do you want?
No, this will be the last question, and then everybody will get a chance to give their closing statement.
So one of the things I talked about earlier was going to meetings. And Gordon said parents are banging on the doors. Or are they banging on the social media doors? Or the actual doors?
No, they're banging on the doors of the schools.
So I'm going to tell you you're wrong.
Then we will, again, we will disagree, and I will bring it to your house.
That's great. So after the Benny Dover stuff broke, there were several forums. I think there were 5 total. And a lot of people showed up. The next Board of Ed meeting, you know how many people showed up to voice their concerns?
Right, they don't trust the system.
Gordon, it was 2.
They don't trust the system.
2 parents showed up to voice their concerns. One was to compliment Cynthia Ritchie for handling the situation. One was to criticize Manny Rivera and also compliment Cynthia. That was it. So if you're going to bang on the doors, go to the Board of Ed, make your feelings known. Yeah, you can bang on social media, it's not gonna change anything. Get out there, make a difference. I agree, people are banging on the doors, but you gotta show up and make your feelings heard, so this board, if I'm on it, can make policies to change things and move the district forward.
I guess as a follow-up in that vein, because people did show up for those forums, although they don't go to meetings, is there anything you think the board could do to change it? Because maybe they won't go to a meeting, but they will go to an open forum, maybe a less formal process would make people feel more comfortable. I think part of the problem is, as Gordon said, people don't trust the system. They also feel like they're not being heard. And in that sort of formal setting of a board meeting, maybe that's not the right venue for our population.
Sure, so I agree with you. It's uncomfortable, first of all, sitting up here, going to a little table and making your voice heard. So why not start 30 minutes before? And you can go talk to Susan or someone who's on the board privately and voice your concerns. I mean, you can do it via email also. But we have to change with society as well. We have to adapt. I think, I'll go back to Cynthia Ritchie. I believe she had put in 9 different ways to communicate to our public in the first 6 months. And inevitably someone's gonna say, well, you didn't use this one. We have to communicate our message out there, but we have to find ways to get information back as well. So my simple idea is, maybe the Board of Ed members show up at 6:30, 1 or 2 of them, and you get feedback. And then you bring it to the board privately, because it's not comfortable sitting at a little table with a little microphone in front of 7 people and other people watching. Saying your name and address, I mean, it would be uncomfortable. So yeah, there's different ways to do it. I'm sure there's more than that one, but that's one.
Okay, and I know Jason and Jeff want to also weigh in on that. So Jeff, why don't you go ahead and then you can pass it to Jason.
Thank you. So they're not banging on the door so much as they're calling. And I know the phone rings and rings, and this is extremely frustrating. By the time they get to a board member, they've usually already been frustrated. And part of our job as board members is being a little bit of a guide through that system. So if you do get lost, if you do hit a dead end, you can short circuit the system, come to me, and I'll tell you where to push. I can't do it for you, and I can't handle the thing because I'm not an administrator, but I can show you where to push. We had someone walk into central office the other day while I was at an informal meeting, and they couldn't get anyone. Everyone was at professional training, and I had the same experience with the buses calling the transportation office. So, I mean, some of these things are just really simple. If the buses are running, you need to be in the office to take the phone call. And you know, that if we have to mandate that everyone comes in at 6:30 in the morning, we'll do that, but I think there might be a more polite way to do that, and willing to explore that.
Jason, and then I think Rob wants to weigh in, and then I'm not sure how we're doing.
So I think so I tend to disagree with some of the comments around the table. What has happened with me over this past year, people have come to me, and they have sent me text messages of things that have happened, and I screenshot that text message and I immediately sent it to Cynthia Ritchie, and she will immediately reply. So I had a message where a student was told that they were not going to be enrolled in the school or come the first day of school. So I screenshot the message, I sent it to Cynthia Ritchie, she called the parent, and that was miscommunication, and this child got into school. So a lot of the things where we would run to social media and where we would cause these problems that would blow up, there are simple ways that I've decided to do over the last year with Cynthia Ritchie. We've had people come to the board, and we can't really reply to them at the board. We don't have an avenue to say we're going to. During board comment is a time where I bring up where someone came last night, and I brought up the comment, public comment. But I think there does need to be some work for those people who are banging on the doors, because they need to know how to bang the door correctly, and we need to know how to respond to them and help them.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to weigh in on this issue that hasn't had an opportunity to? Rob?
So I think it starts with something that you mentioned is reaching out. So transparency is important. I think having these meetings on live, being able to watch them, I think making yourself available, right? having an understanding that you're going to make yourself available one time a month to individuals who are parents that are having issues. Build confidence. Like you said, there's not a lot of confidence as to what's happened. There are with individuals, but we got to build confidence from a board perspective. And that also happens with the budget. We have never built confidence in this budget for the whole of New London to say there's value in our school system. There's value from what our teachers are doing and what our students are doing. I think we have to make that a story that we tell better. So to me, it starts with transparency, and that would be something that I would advocate for as an individual board member and as a board member as a whole.
Thank you.
So we're at the end of the show, so we're going to do in reverse order. Everybody has a 1-minute closing statement, and please, Charmaine, start and use it as you will.
I'd first like to say thank you to everybody that showed up, and for those that are watching later, that there are some really, really important things that have been said and that are going to continue to be said. And I just want you guys to know that I am for holistic growing of our children. We need to start with them. We need to ask them some of the tough questions that we really don't want to ask each other. And understand that their perspective means just as much as ours, and that when it comes to policies, we need to do what's best for the whole and not the individual, even though sometimes addressing individual needs is needed as well. I also want to say that we need to budget, not just in time, but also in money, and we need that money to allocate for the amount of time that we're spending. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is Brian Dowdy for the last time, running for Board of Ed. I want to thank Jackie Delpy from the Neighborhood Alliance and the House. Thank you so much for your questions. My last son is in the high school, and it's an exciting time because I'll be alone with my wife soon. But I think over the next 2 years, I hope to work on certain things that will bring trust back to our community. And I think it started, to be honest with you, with bringing Cynthia Ritchie in. And I'm very proud that I was on the committee to pick her. In addition to being on the committee selected me along with 4 other people to go to her district and interview her entire staff. And when I interviewed her staff, I felt like she was the right one to come back to our district. And I think a lot of people are here kind of saying that. What she told me once was, when I'm here after the first year on July 1st, people will feel better. I think we're making progress. We're getting better. I think she's turning around the district, and I hope to be part of the process in November.
Thank you. Susan?
Hi. So I don't want to copycat you, but yeah, so 2 years on the Board of Ed. It's been an experience. I've learned a lot. I'm hoping to have your vote in another month, to work another 2 years for the community, to support our superintendent, follow her district improvement plan through fruition. I don't think she's going anywhere, and I say that, and I just want to remain that positive person. I've had a great experience in New London, and a lot of people, you mainly have asked what we've done or what we could do better. And I feel like in 2 years, yeah, you go to a lot of meetings, you sit on a lot of committees. It's a lot of time, but yet, you still have the community asking you, what have you done? And, it kind of makes me question, like, oh, I don't know, what have I done? And I don't know the answer to that, but I think I'm just a parent first that's looking for your vote to sit on the Board of Ed, and that's all I can ask.
Thank you. Regina?
Right, I'm Regina Mosley again. Thank you everybody for coming out on your Friday. It's Friday, right? So I'm running for the Board of Education for re-election to support our kids, to support my kids, your kids, New London's kids, Waterford's kids, Bosworth's kids, all the kids that come to New London that are important, right? We all want to protect the kids and give them the best possible education that we can. My hope is to be reelected so that we can continue to work closely with the city on a better budget, a more transparent budget, one that serves everyone and not just one aspect of it. My goal is to write in some new policies that bring a parent onto the board as a representative right next to the student representative. So I definitely have some goals and plans and ideas and things that I want to do, and I hope that I have your support on November 5th. Regina Mosley, thank you.
Thank you. Jason?
My name is Jason Catala. And this all, for me, began back in 1997. I was on the ballot with actually Elaine Adams here. I ran in 97 and I came in 6th place. And from then on, I've been keeping involved. And sometimes I question, why are you doing this? Why do you go to these meetings? Why are you getting yourself worked up? And it's because I am a lifelong resident. I believe in every child who walks through our doors. I'm not afraid to question the things that people who are on the board that are afraid to question. I'm not afraid to go to the paper and write a letter to the editor and voice my concern. I've actually had 2 letters in the past 6 years in the paper every month with some things you agree with and some things you don't, but they come from my heart, and I will continue to do that for the benefit of the district and, in my opinion, for the students. I have been a member of a number of different policy. I was chair of policy. I chaired curriculum for a term, and I'm running because I do want to work with Cynthia Ritchie. One thing I'm going to say just before you cut me off is that in her interview, she didn't apply anywhere else. She only applied to New London, and she said she wanted to come here, and I believe she's going to be here she's going to go beyond the 3-year average.
Thank you. Jeffrey?
Thanks very much. It's been a real honor and a privilege representing you on the board for the last 2 years, and I hope that through my voting record, I will earn your vote for re-election. I keep my promises, and my record reflects that. I campaign on holding our transportation contractor accountable. We have a new contractor with shiny new buses, but that doesn't mean we don't still hold them accountable. I campaign on regionalism, and I got appointed to the Learn board so that I could do a transportation study about how we could better work together next time we have a transportation contract. I've done the things that I set out to do in finance, specifically because I like details and policy and finding compromise. I promise to work across lines and with different groups, and Karen, you can testify to that. We work together to stop a budget referendum and to increase transparency for the schools. But my favorite thing that I didn't get to talk about, that if you re-elect me, I found $500,000, guys, sitting in the student activity funds. Swear to God. And, it didn't have a lot of controls over it. Not only that, but we're going to put controls on it. We're going to dedicate it. We're going to put it in an interest-bearing trust. We're going to use that interest to target recruitment for teachers, to make them from our students, so that our students go into education. Then the teachers will match the student body. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hope to earn your vote.
Elaine, welcome back. And
Thank you. So let me first thank the Neighborhood Alliance for hosting tonight. Thank everybody who came out. Gordon and Chris, thank you for hosting this and for your questions. I've done a lot of stuff in the city of New London. I've been in elected capacity, I've been in appointed capacity, I've done a lot of volunteer work, and here's what I know. It truly does take a village to build a community, not just to educate our kids, but to fix what's wrong with New London, and so that we can finally stop talking about what our great potential is and start achieving our great potential. It's a community effort. It requires each and every one of us. Educating kids is not just up to the Board of Education. It's up to every single one of us to do everything we can. That's my belief. I hope that you share it. I hope that you'll cast your vote for me. And I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
thank you. Rob?
Well, thank you to the Neighborhood Alliance, the Bidells, our timekeepers, and all of you for coming out. I want your vote, because I think I have the experience to go to the board meetings and bring policy initiatives. I believe the structure that's there currently is a broken structure. It does not provide for each individual board member to bring a policy initiative to the board and have an understanding. Some of the things that I'm looking to do right at the outset, obviously I mentioned the paraprofessionals, they've been without a contract for 2 years. Something that shouldn't be happening. Harbor School needs to be addressed. There are 300 kids at that school. There's not a direction long-term for that school. That school is in, it's given us a lot of good years, but I don't think there's a vision there and a direction there. So for me, it's about policy, it's about accountability, transparency, and building goals. I don't want to be the superintendent's friend. I want to challenge her to be the best that she can be, but also being a board member that gives that position the policy direction that we're supposed to be. The board is policy, the superintendent is administrator. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. And I want to thank everybody, I especially want to thank the Neighborhood Alliance for what I thought was a lively debate. And I have to say, having done this a couple of times, I'm very happy with our choices this year. It seems as though if you remove some of the egos, you have some really, really good discussions, and I'm really excited about this season. Thank you all so much.